My professional life after residency in the Philippine General Hospital in the aspect of private practice. This is a talk to inspire aspiring general surgeons. This was prompted by a request by the 2022 Training Committee of the Department of Surgery of Hospital ng Maynila Medical Center on March 14, 2022 to give an inspirational message to the residents through a narration of my experience in surgical residency, the trials, and how I managed to cope up to private practice. I have done a narration on my general surgery residency in PGH. This is the second part on my private practice. This narration may well serve as my short memoir on my private practice. I officially completed my 5 years of general surgery residency training program in the Philippine General Hospital in June 1981. From July 1976 to June 1981, 5 years. Right after I went to the United States to spend a few weeks of observership in Cleveland Clinic and in Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. While there, I initially thought of going into fellowship or residency again, if necessary. I studied for the U.S. medical licensing examination. I think I passed the part 1. However, in October 1981, I was forced to go to Taiwan to fetch my father, who suffered a stroke when he went there for a vacation. By November 1981, I was back in the Philippines. Thereafter, I decided to stay in the Philippines for good and to start my private practice. I considered 2 options: provincial and or Manila, or both. Provincial or Manila practice, or both. I am from Cabanatuan City, which was just 3 hours from Manila, and my parents and some brothers and sisters still live there. We also have a residence in Metro Manila. I explored on the options. Eventually, by December 1981, I made a decision to accept an invitation from Dr. George Eufemio, my mentor, to be part of the consultant staff of the PGH Department of Surgery, specifically GS1, or section of head and neck and breast surgery. To establish or kick off my private practice, I rented a clinic space in the PDC building across PGH. I would receive referrals from contemporaries, PGH medical colleagues, and PGH institutional workers. At that time, there was already a private section in PGH, although only with a few beds and very limited number of operating rooms for private patients. Thus, I started doing my private operations in PGH, and later on, I would bring patients to Manila Medical Center, now Manila Med, starting late 1982, and to Manila Doctors Hospital eventually. So my private clinics were located in the following places: across PGH along Taft Avenue, initially PDC building, then later on Fatima building. I eventually gave this up circa 1995. Second clinic, Medical Center Manila. I bought stocks late 1982 after 1 year of private practice. But again, eventually I gave my clinic up in 1995. Third clinic that I had, Manila Doctors Hospital. I bought stocks in 1984. I am maintaining this clinic up to now, 2022. Starting 1995 up to the present, 2022, that's 27 years, I already have delimited my private clinics or my private practice in just one hospital, that is the Manila Doctors Hospital, and holding clinics only 3 times a week. I repeat, just 3 times a week for the past 27 years. The height of my private practice in terms of number of operations performed was from 1982 to 1989. That's about 6 years, as I did a 6-month traveling fellowship in foreign countries in 1985. I had an average of 330 operations per year. This may be an overestimation, and it included the private and charity operations. After 1989, the census dropped dramatically, but I still was doing an average of 120 operations per year up to 2014. From 2014 to 2019, before the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown. So during this time, I was in a semi-retirement mood already, as I retired at age 65 in 2014 from government institutions like the UP Manila and Hospital ng Maynila Medical Center. The average of my operation was just 100 per year, or even less. There was an evident reason for the drop starting 1990. The reason was personal choice, a personal decision. Starting 1989, I decided to do outreach or out-of-town educational programs for hospitals such as DOH provincial hospitals under the UP College of Medicine Postgraduate Institute of Medicine project from 1989 to 1991, and my distance education in surgery program in Zamboanga City Medical Center from 1991 to 1997, for medical schools such as Ateneo de Zamboanga University School of Medicine, Southwestern University College of Medicine in Cebu, Bicol Christian College of Medicine in Bicol from 1993 to 2005, and for hospitals such as Ciudad Medical Zamboanga in 2009 and 2013 to 2014, Zamboanga City Medical Center 2016, and Salubris Medical Center in Nueva Vizcaya in 2016. Starting 1989, I placed more importance to my personal program dubbed as Education for Health Development in the Philippines program. I have found it more fulfilling than earning money from private practice. I decided in 1989 that I would not be a slave to money, a slave to private practice. So private practice took the back seat. My outreach educational program is still going on up to now, but more on online and no more out-of-town travel. But with my out-of-town travels, I have accepted the repercussion that I have to compromise the availability factor for establishing and sustaining a private practice. This explains the drop in my number of operations starting 1990. Before I give my specific advice on private practice based on my personal experiences, I'd like to give you some general introductory pointers or principles first, which I have applied to myself, as you shall see later on. Why establish a private practice, medical practice in the Philippines? The reasons that I usually give is to earn a living in the Philippines and also to contribute to the health development of a community in the Philippines. What should be the goal in establishing a private medical practice in the Philippines? One, the goal should be a satisfied, happy, and healthy private medical practitioner in the Philippines. The second goal is earning enough to be a healthy person and to enjoy and sustain a comfortable living with frugal lifestyle in the Philippines. Third goal is happy in terms of satisfaction of earning enough and contributing to the health development in a community in the Philippines. And the last goal, healthy in terms of sustaining a physical, mental, and social well-being for as long as possible, or at least up to the average lifespan of a Filipino living in the Philippines, which is 70 years old. What are the decisions that you as a medical practitioner have to make with regards to the place of medical practice? One, decide on the place of your medical practice in consideration of the following: your chances of achieving the goal of a medical practitioner, which is to be satisfied and to be happy and to be healthy. Presence of facilities to support your intended medical field of practice. Presence of people to support your intended medical field of practice. Number of practitioners of your chosen medical field in the community. The degree of your missionary, I repeat, missionary tendency. And the last decision will be your tendency for a certain lifestyle and certain type of living environment and atmosphere. Here now are my more specific personal advice on establishing and sustaining a private practice, which consists of the following. Number one, credentials. Be at least a Philippine Board of Surgery certified general surgeon. Number two, availability. Be constantly physically present and available in your hospitals and clinics of practice, and be easily reachable at a moment's notice through your cell phone and Viber for referrals and consultations. And then good to excellent reputation of the following traits. Number one, professionalism. At least no reputation of being discourteous to patients and medical colleagues, and no reputation of being unethical in the practice of surgery. A trait of competence, a good trait of reputation for a competence, at least no reputation of too many unacceptable morbidities and mortalities. Better still, if there is an add-on reputation of extraordinary skills, operating skills. Approachable, at least a reputation of easy to talk to and easy to request reasonable favors from. The last trait which I would like to emphasize that one should have a reputation of is being compassionate. At least a reputation of having the emotion that feels in response to the suffering of your patients, whatever types, both physically and financially. And this emotion motivates within a desire, a desire to help in whatever way, big or small, particularly financially. So these are my more specific personal advice in establishing and sustaining a private practice in surgery or in any specialty for that matter. For me, the above contributed greatly to my so-called great practice from 1982 to 1989, a good 6 years until I shifted based on my personal decision to my education for health development in the Philippine program, thereby sacrificing availability, promoting factor to which I don't have any regret up to now. There are other advice or tips that I have to share to the young surgical residents that have helped promote and sustain my private practice. One, although referrals from colleagues help a lot in establishing and developing your private practice, the long-term or sustaining factor is a referral from patients whom you have treated. If they like you for whatever reasons, they will remember you and will refer the relatives and friends to you. In my practice, especially after 1989, the source of my referrals has been mainly from relatives and patients of former patients. Relatives and friends, I mean, of former patients. Number two, explaining and advising patients and relatives. I have this habit of explaining clearly from clinical diagnosis to indications for paraclinical diagnostic procedures, to treatment options, and to health maintenance. The patients and relatives like this, and in the process, they will like you. Giving patients a copy of clinic notes and other notes that contain explanations. I have this habit also. Again, the patients and relatives like this, and in the process will like you. No queuing, no long waiting time in the clinic. I started this in 2015 with a structured appointment system. I make sure patients will not wait for more than 60 minutes from the book appointment time in my clinic. My batting average was 99% success from my 2015 to 2019 before the COVID-19 lockdown. The patient and relatives appreciate this. No queuing, no long waiting time. Praying for them and with them. In 2019, I started this practice of praying for and with my patients before every operation. Before 2019, especially for those with terminal diseases, I would tell them that I will pray for them. The patients and the relatives appreciate this. Giving your cell phone numbers so that you can be reached when needed. The patients and relatives appreciate this. So far, only rarely did I encounter an abuse of the use of cell phones in contacting me. There are other innovative things that I have been doing under my patient-centered care management program. When you say patient-centered care program, it is the practice of caring for patients and their relatives in ways that are meaningful and valuable to the individual patient. It includes listening, informing, and involving patients in their care. I recommend that you look at my Facebook and other blogs I will provide you with the links if you are really interested. Just contact me. So that's all for now. That's my memoir for my private practice. I think I am justified to write this memoir now because I am semi-retired from private practice and may be completely retiring as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. I have stopped holding clinic and operating for more than 2 years now. My last clinic and operation was on March 15, 2020, a day before the declaration of the nationwide lockdown. However, I have been doing telemedical consultation since March 17, 2020 up to now. That was 2 days after the lockdown. So on this note, I hope I have achieved the objective of the task requested of me by the OMMC Surgery Training Committee. And most important, I hope I have inspired you, young general surgery resident of OMMC Surgery. Wishing you all the best in your journey to become a well-trained general surgeon and in the future, your private practice. Mabuhay!